Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the Rundown. A2DRadio.com, A2D Live, all of our A2D Radio platforms. I'm Zach Barr, Ralph Delavecchio, Stephen Reichel in the Phillies gear. Dressed perfectly for this episode and this edition of the Rundown on A2D Radio because a lot of MLB talk right now. Obviously, from a sports perspective, it's probably the top sports topic out there as far as, every side of it and the attention it's grabbing from people, the attention grabbing headlines that came out the other day. Obviously, the players are finally, you could say maybe vindicated a little bit as the public gets to see their side of why they were never happy with what these pay cuts are supposed to be. We're going to talk about MLB's future. We're talking about Roy Halladay. It's the 10th anniversary of his perfect game tomorrow. So we'll have some Roy Halladay talk and inspired by that. We'll talk our top 10 favorite MLB pitchers of all time. But the big topic is obviously MLB, this new proposal from the owners that is going to see guys like Bryce Harper lose $21 million this year. Players are pretty much, the easy way to say it is, they're making 30% of what they would have. A guy that's making $10 million going to make $2.9 million. The easiest way to put it is just try to break it down and make it as simple as possible. Players are going to get screwed out of a lot of money, and obviously that was, they were never going to accept the deal that was going to screw them out of all this money. That's one conversation for us to have, obviously, is the owner's side of it and the player side of it. The other conversation we want to have with this is how it's affecting baseball right now and how it might affect Major League Baseball's future. Because our poll question, are you concerned for the future of Major League Baseball? I 100% am. I am scared to death right now for the future of Major League Baseball because of all of this. Steven, you got the Phillies gear on. What is your take on all of this?
All right, well, basically, we're all in a no-win situation right now. As fans, regardless if you're pro owner, pro player, whatever. I don't know anyone who's going to be pro owner at this point in time. They've dug themselves a grave that
a big one.
Counteract right now. They're not going to be able to get out. They need to put their tail between their legs, give the players what they want at this point in time, and make this happen. Because I'll tell you this much: if they go past the first week in July, there will be no baseball. You're not coming back from this. Home runs ain't going to save you. There's nothing you're going to come with no playoff plan that's going to dig you out of this hole. Some other sports franchise, regardless if we're talking about soccer or some type of combat sport, will overtake you as one of the big four sports. I'll guarantee that right now.
Ralphie, we've been talking about it for a few weeks, leading up to this episode, kind of just trying to connect the dots on all the information that had came up. And one of the things we actually talked about, we were able to connect the dots enough over the, probably 2-3 weeks ago to get to the point where this plan that came out that we just saw, I don't know if we were as shocked and people here at A2D Radio were as shocked as maybe some of the public, some of the people, the outsiders that don't, casual sports fans that maybe don't pay as much attention to this stuff as the hardcore guys do. I'm not shocked by this proposal. I knew this was coming, and I'm not shocked by the outcome of it. Where do you see this leading, Ralphie? How do you see this leading to baseball this year? Do you think there'll be baseball next year? Can they get it fixed by next spring?
I hope we all hope as baseball guys, we hope it gets fixed, right? Like Steve said, if it doesn't get done before July, or if anything is not agreed upon before July, I don't see it coming back. Because then you're talking about spring train. If it does come back, then you're talking about season starting in August. How many games can you get in that span before you get into October and November for playoffs? You know what I mean? So if it gets to July and there's no agreement, I don't think we get baseball back to begin with. And we were sitting here, 2 weeks ago when they came out with the one proposal, Zach, where they would have, the teams go down to the respective spring training sites and play games there. And we were all happy about it. We were okay. We're cool with that. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 days ago, the new proposal with the whole money, and you see some backlash on it. So and it just sucks because the MLB had it on the tee to move this thing into the right direction for sports to come back, and they completely whiffed on it. You want to talk about being one of the 4 major sports to come back, right, to start up their season and continue their season and start it back up and actually market their organizations and their marketability now. It was on the tee for them, and they missed. They missed the ball completely.
Not only did they miss, not only did they swing and miss.
They overextended themselves. They kind of were trying to put the players in this corner with this secondary proposal. Not just whiffed on it, but put themselves in a position where you have to get the players more than probably what they were asking for with the first proposal at this point in time, to kind of make up for the basically throwing eggs at the players' face, like, you're going to take this, and the players were like, they didn't even respond to it. So you need to backstep and give them a little something, because if not, you're not going to fracture your relationship with the players, but the fans as well.
Yeah, I think the players, this goes so much deeper. I think both sides weren't going to ever be happy with some sort of agreement that was made. But I think the players now at this point feel insulted. Like, it's deeper than just them losing money. I think personally, like, you're looking at this as like, the owners are trying to insult my intelligence. Did they really think they were going to put a proposal on the table like this, and players were just going to be like, yeah, you know what, I guess we have no choice. Let's sign it, or else there's no baseball. The way the players are looking at it is, fuck you. The reason people are watching the game is us. The reason people pay money to put asses in the seat and watch is us. They can tell you every single player on the goddamn team. Half the fans don't even know who owns the stupid ball club.
Yeah.
So the fact that the owners want to sit here and try to make it, it's more important from a revenue perspective because we could lose all this money. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Listen, I know we're over here talking about players make a lot of money, but these billionaires that own these teams have revenue streams from how many different angles that come in. It's not like they just owned a baseball team and that's how they became rich. It's not players. It's not the players' problem. It's not the fans' problem. It's not anybody's problem but yours as the owner of that team. That there might be some revenue issue and all that lost here. You don't just get the fuck over your employees now because you want to try to put an extra couple bucks in your pocket. They're using the players to line their pockets, and that's total BS. And that's any company. We'll just take sports out of it. If you're a CEO of a company that's trying to fuck over your employees to help yourself, that's bad business.
But here's the other thing. Now the owners are crying. They're losing money for this and losing money for that. If you're really losing all this money, why aren't you opening your books and show us how much you're going to lose then? Why is it that the Atlanta Braves are the only team who has an open book in this, or complete transparency in this, to say like, hey, this is what's going on, when it's not? You're basically trying to pull a bluff to sit there and say this is what's going on and not showing us it. So in my opinion, you're either trying to pull the wool over on your players or everybody at the same time. So something needs to give here. If you're sitting there saying this is why we're doing it because of this, then you need to show us why.
Yeah, and that argument for me, like I get where the owners are coming from there, but okay, so you're going to lose some money. So we're in this process though. I mean, everybody kind of figured, look around, all businesses are losing money. All businesses are losing money. That's the way it works. We're in this process though, where we're supposed to put that.
They can write it off. These players can't. They can have a tax write-off because they make X amount and they're in a different tax bracket. The minor league players, some of your C or B level baseball players, they can't write that off. That's money.
Yeah, and you saw
that money they're behind. They're going to have to try to make up the next season. So, like I said, you need to give the players what they want right now. If not, you're going to have a hell of a time when we come back to the bargaining table next year.
Well, that's a big part of this is leverage.
And to go back on what the whole players and the money situation, I mean, what was it last week where the Athletics had basically said they stopped paying their minor league players because they can't, the budget's not there right now. So they cut the entire farm system off from getting paid. So your AAA players, AA, single A, your high single A, they're not getting paid right now.
And their livelihood is on the line. Those guys' livelihood is on the line.
The minor league players are the ones that are hurting right now.
Yeah, I'm supposed to feel bad for billionaires because they might lose millions of dollars throughout this whole thing. Meanwhile, you just put how many guys that were playing minor league baseball out of a fucking job because you decided not to pay them. Those dudes ain't making millions of dollars the same way that MLB guys are. You got some dudes in low A levels of baseball, low A, high A level of baseball that aren't even making $100,000 a year, and we're going to sit here and just not pay guys. That shit is ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing was neither side was really going to get sympathy, obviously, from the public. But I'm just saying, if we've got to pick a side on what's going on here, this is absolutely absurd to me that ownership felt like this was even going to be anything close to an acceptable proposal. I really feel for the players here because I feel like they feel like they're now fighting a losing battle. They know the options here are slim. They're not going to counter with some type of proposal that owners are going to accept. So I think everybody sees the writing on the wall there. They're not going to play baseball this year. At least the MLB players now. Whether we have replacement players or something like that, well, that's a whole new fun conversation. Could this be like a 1987 situation, guys, with the NFL, with the replacement players, the scabs as they were known? Do you have something like that happen? Do some of those minor leaguers come to play big league ball just to have a job?
Well, I'll tell you what though, if that happens, I don't know who watches, brother. I really don't, man. I don't know who watches.
We'll all watch. Why wouldn't we? Of course we would.
I don't know.
In 1987.
I'm not watching baseball with replacement players. When if that's the case, we might as well just go watch old baseball tapes. But listen, if I want to see something, I want to see something that is the top quality product. If I want to see a lesser version of it, let's go watch college baseball or something like that. I don't want to sit there and have an asterisk to a season for any reason, just for the fact that they want to keep the money train going or whatever. I would rather, if that's the case, shut it down. Let's start over next year and cart off with a new slate, because it's not a product I really want to see. I wasn't a fan for replacing players when we watched it for football. I'm not going to be a fan for the potential of what could happen if it's a situation with the 2020 season of baseball.
And also too, Zach, it's pretty bad when Gary Bettman, one of the worst commissioners in all the four major sports, is putting a better product together right now in the NHL than the MLB, dude. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Manfred's been giving Bettman a run for his money for quite a while now.
Absolutely.
I've been saying for a few years, and I've kind of been saying this in a joking sort of fashion, and all of a sudden it's kind of come true. Steven, I don't know if you're an old school wrestling fan of any kind, but you remember
I go back to WWF, bro. Let's go.
You remember the old Vince McMahon promo with the NWO when they came into the WWE? If anybody's going to kill my creation, I'm going to do it. I feel like that's like MLB right now. Like they're literally trying as hard as they can to kill their own creation. Like with all the crazy rule changes and the experiments in independent ball and the idea of then using robot umpires and things like that. Like those are things where I think baseball's already kind of got the wheels in motion to maybe kind of alienate a lot of people that were, a big part of their family, and now this is even worse.
When you look at it, when this whole thing first started, and we broke down like who was going to be the league to kind of do it first, to kind of lay down the groundwork, and when everyone laid everything out, everyone had hockey down at the bottom, and baseball was kind of more towards the top. Now, I think if we had to repull that now, baseball is probably going to be at the bottom and basketball is going to be at the top. So, I mean, when you look at it, it all boils down to your CEO, the face behind your sport. Is it if you're basically an empty suit, or are you a strong strong CEO? We're gonna find out in the next few weeks, aren't we?
Yeah. See, this is a great time. Manfred has, there's going to be two results here. He's either going, because I think baseball fans don't like him. I think within baseball circles, people really don't like him. So this has a chance to end two ways for him. It either blows up and gets really, really ugly like we think it's going to, and it's just going to be firepower for him to get voted out of that position and for them to bring somebody else in, and they probably will be in a position where they have no choice. It's almost going to be like they're on their deathbed. They need to find new leadership to help lead this back. Or he can completely 180 what his current reputation is and save this whole thing by finding some type of miraculous way to get this all back together in a hurry and find a way to save baseball this year. I'm with you guys. I don't see baseball happening this year in any way. I think we're already too deep into that.
I think it's too late, dude. I think it's too late, man, because we're going into June, right? We're 3 days away from going into June, and if this thing doesn't get solved before July, I mean, I don't even think we even see any baseball, man, at all.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, Manfred could step in. Maybe, if he's a way to mediate, you've got 2 weeks here to maybe find some way to come to an agreement.
Absolutely. At the most. You have a 2 to 3 week window right now to figure out what's going on before July hits. Because if July hits, it's done. It's over with. You might as well just wrap the season up, bite the bullet, and just get ready for next year.
I'll say it like this. If I'm the baseball ownership at this point in time, what I do is I come back with more games and try to find a common ground between games and money to make it work. Because if you don't do that now, because all right, it's plain and simple that 82 games isn't going to work because the money doesn't work for you, the money doesn't work for the players, it just doesn't work. So maybe if you go a higher game to kind of bring the money back towards where the players would be more comfortable, maybe somewhere where you can find some common ground and we can move forward and actually have baseball. If you don't do something like some type of thinking along them lines right now, then yeah, you're going to damage your product. We're not going to have baseball. You're going to have a serious problem with a lot of your hardcore baseball fans because, as much as we love football in America and in the United States, baseball is the beating heart of America in a different way.
Baseball for the longest time was that sport. Like ask your grandparents growing up. You know what I mean? Like baseball was that sport. Everybody had a team. In the 70s. In the 70s, baseball, everybody had a team in the 70s. You could be a Reds fan with the Big Red Machine, the Yankees, you had Giants fans because people followed Willie Mays. But everybody had a team. And I feel like 94, when the strike happened, yeah, baseball bounced back. But don't tell me I'm wrong here, because I think it's all the evidence is there. That was when football, NFL got their opportunity to become the number one sport in America, and they never turned back. Because up until that time, baseball, NFL was gaining, but baseball was still the top sport, and they've never bounced back to get anywhere close to that level since.
Yeah, but it was because football also started the whole thing with the free agency and stuff like that. You had Reds in Philadelphia, you had all kinds of guys moving to places. It was just a really exciting time, and football developed stars way more and often and better than any other sport at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean that's all true too. I think my point with it is like 94 damaged baseball's popularity so much that NFL just
they had a major change
where now they've got 100 million people watching the Super Bowl. When has baseball ever had 100 million people watching the World Series? You know what I'm saying? Like at least baseball could have been there to maybe still you would have your two top sports in this country, the NFL and MLB, and now it's clear as day who what the top sports what the top sport group is in America, and that's the NFL. It's the NFL and everybody else, and they just nobody seems to come close to pulling the ratings that the NFL does now.
It was a switch in culture. A lot of things, the strike damaged it, but like I said, the NFL also had a change to kind of try to push that. Baseball never recovered it. Like as you said, like everyone had a thing to go to, but it goes back to there's just more stars in that sport, more talent going to that sport.
And also the MLB doesn't market their players like how the other three do, right?
Now,
listen, and that's another thing the MLB sucks at, dude. Right? You could go around, right, to different countries in different stuff, and ask who Mike Trout is. I will bet you any type of money, 90% of the people would not know who he is. 90%, and the 10% that do know sports or love the game of baseball to know who Mike Trout is.
And ask that same question in the 90s. Who was the face of baseball in the 90s? It would have been Ken Griffey Jr., right? And if you went around in the 90s, Ken Griffey Jr. had his own Nintendo game at one point. Like that's how popular he was around the whole world.
It was Griffey and
baseball's gone from that to this.
Yeah. That's another thing. Baseball just doesn't market their players like how the other three sports do. And
that's a good point, Ralphie.
It's bad. It's very bad. Well, I was going to ask you, Zach, if the MLB does go on strike like they did that in the past, what was it, the 90s, correct? They went in the strike in the 90s. Obviously, they survived that because they're still playing. Do you think what's happening right now, do you think they can survive another strike, another thing like that?
I think it'll kill MLB as we know it. I think there's still going to be professional baseball. I think the MLB would still exist, but the MLB as we know it would be dead forever. Like, as far as the revenue, as far as the money that's involved with it, like it's not going to be. It'll never get back to being the level of sport that the other big four are. If you're catching my drift, like to Steven's point earlier, it'll get supplanted by a sport like the MLS or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with that whole thing is if that happens, it also fundamentally alters the rest of the sport from college, high school, all the way down.
Oh, absolutely.
It does, but what you could also see come out of that is there's obviously so many independent professional baseball leagues out there right now. Some of them, it might actually help in that sense. You actually have a lot of different levels of professional baseball that are options there now for, amateur baseball players of all levels.
It's also the state of confusion that it causes too. Like we were talking about combat sports off air. You have UFC, but you also have other MMA promotions all of that throughout the world. Some are on the bottom end. Some are on around the same level. Some are higher than the UFC. Some will debate that fact, but at the same time, it causes confusion because you don't know where to go get that product at. That's what makes Major League Baseball so special, is because you have the best players for the most part in the world in that league.
No, that's a good point. I think this will help all the other niche sports. We can sit here and argue which niche sport it's going to help the best. But the bottom line, you got so many niche sports. NASCAR is a niche sport. UFC and fighting of all kinds, those are all niche sports. All of those niche sports, this is going to help tremendously because it's just one more sport now that people can watch now that their eyes aren't on baseball. I think, big picture, maybe it helps like the overall big picture of sports, but it's terrible for hardcore baseball people like me. Like I'm down here in Florida and I literally umpire for a living down here. I work at Wawa and I umpire and I make more money umpiring at the high school and in the youth travel ball levels than I actually do at Wawa. All the perfect game tournaments and things like that I work. And am I a little bit concerned that this will affect that? At first I was. I'm not so concerned anymore because I think baseball at its purest form is always going to exist. I think the big problem you'll find is once you got these kids that are playing, in these perfect game tournaments, all the elite prospects and stuff like that, it's more about big picture for them, what you're playing now. Everybody's plan was to go to Major League Baseball. You play in the MLB, all of a sudden it's like, well, what's your plan? You've got maybe multiple options now. You could go play in the MLB. You could go play baseball in Mexico. You could go play in these independent leagues. You could go play in Japan if you wanted to. I think it opens up more options for these guys. Maybe it's a lot like basketball in some way. You've got your elite prospects that are going to go to the NBA, but you've got your guys that was just your Joe Schmo college player that's playing professional ball in Italy somewhere right now. It could lead to
and that's the thing. Like the thing, like you were saying, Zach, with the baseball. There's different routes you can go to get into the MLB. Right? We've seen players that weren't really good in college, right? But were good enough to make a team like over in Japan and China and stuff like that. And then they got good enough and they got looked at by the MLB and they got into the league that way. So for the MLB, there's different routes that you could go still. You know what I mean? For players that, that are not at the elite level.
Yeah. I mean, you've had plenty of players that have got drafted at some point and found themselves out of professional baseball at 21 years old. And then 6 years later, they're 27 and here they are playing for somebody hitting home runs. And you find out they just spent the past 5 years in some Korean league, as the home run leader, just kind of like recreating their game somewhere. Yeah. And now they get their second shot in Major League. There've been plenty of stories of that kind. Sure. Now let's transition this into next year. If we've all been kind of in agreement that baseball won't happen this year. Steven, I want to direct this question at you because me and you were kind of going back and forth with this a little earlier. I thought you made some good points. We got these owners claiming how much money they're going to lose. These owners bitching about, I'm going to lose all this money. I'm going to lose all this money, blah, 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 all this money I'm going to lose. Well, if you're going to lose so much fucking money, hey, do I have to be worried about baseball even being able to play next year? I mean, are you going to lose so much money where you can't even afford to have a season next year, Mr. Billionaire owner? Does this – like, I'm trying to make fun of it, but like, does this, if we were not to have baseball at all this year, does that put next year's season in jeopardy because of the financial situation of it, or how do you think all that might work?
I mean, I'm with you on that one, man. And like, if you're sitting there like Crying Wolf sitting there saying like, well we're gonna have to cut this and all these players, like, all right, so you overextended yourself because of whatever reason, construction around the park, in the park, whatever the case may be. If you're sitting there crying wolf now that you're not going to be able to do it, what's the difference from another 8 to 10 months from now? What's it going to be any different? Because you're going to put things on hold. Well, then what happens to all those people? Oh, wait, you're going to put thousands of more people out of work so we can try to figure out things next year. Okay, that works.
That's the problem for me. It's like a butterfly effect, isn't it? Like, and it's the term, the butterfly effect. Like, isn't that what that exactly is? We're talking about all this money we could lose this year if we don't have a baseball season. Well, if we're going to lose all this money, I don't know if it is safe to assume that we would just have a baseball season next year. Because you're right. Look at all the people, all the team employees and people like that that'll probably find themselves out of work just because you were forced to cut certain positions. It could almost end up like the movie Major League. And Ralphie, I know you've never seen it. Oh my God, help us! But it's like the movie Major League, Stephen, where the woman owner she walks into the locker room, into the clubhouse, right? And what happened to all the hot water? You know what I mean? She had cut the hot water, and the next thing you know, they're flying on that plane, the rickety, the busted ass plane that looked like it was ready to just like nosedive into the ground and kill everybody. We're gonna get to that. Instead of private planes, you're gonna be flying coach. Instead of team buses, bitch, you better ride the Greyhound. Yeah. Shit like that. Gonna get that crazy.
You just said something, Ralphie. You're not allowed to talk baseball anymore until you go watch both Major League.
Trust me, he's been harassed enough about that. People got on him for not ever seeing Major League.
Oh, man, dude. I mean, I think it's one of those things like, all right, you get to a point where you had to at least caught some points of it at some point in time in your life.
Yeah, that's what I say. How do you not accidentally see it?
The MLB is going to be like, obviously you guys seen Slapshot where they take the Greyhounds to the different.
There you go. It's perfect.
And then the fan club is in the big yellow school bus behind them. They go to the games.
No hot water in the clubhouses. No upgrades. The hot tub is now a cold tub. We had a team trainer, but now you just got to go to the hospital. We had to fire. That was one of the positions that had to be cut.
It's getting bad for the MLB. It's getting very, very bad.
We can make jokes, but like, and that's what we do here to try to be entertaining. But like, we've been serious enough about it. But the future of MLB, like, we really shouldn't joke about it because it could be one of those things that 6 months from now we're looking at and we're severely, severely concerned about whether or not Major League Baseball is ever going to be the same going forward again. Yeah. I don't want to have that conversation 6 months from now. But I'm scared to death that's what it's going to be. Like I'm scared to death that this is going to lead to a strike and blow up into something so much bigger. Greg says, Milekovic says, get the outboard boat motor for the whirlpool. Yes, the motor. They told it to get the motor going in the whirlpool. Absolutely, Greg. Phenomenal reference there. Yes, I'm trying to pull up the comments on Facebook, and I'm having trouble doing it. I don't know, Ralphie, if you can help. You're supposed to be producing. So,
yeah, I got some.
You do some comments for us.
Calling some Indians games at this point in time right now.
Oh, Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker needs to be the voice of this whole thing.
So we got Tommy saying, if you want to read it, Zach, I'll just pull him up. You can go ahead and read it.
MLB baseball, like it or not, had a huge opportunity to grow their game and lead the way through this, and they failed again. A blank canvas. They're still screwing it up. People don't like to hear this, but they could have really helped youth baseball. They let baseball down on every level. Yeah, we talked about that, Tommy, and you're 100% right. And you're somebody else that I talked about umpiring at that level. Tommy coaches at this level. So this is, he's affected by this too, and he sees, the same thing I'm seeing with it. It's really, really, I would like to think that, what's going on with the billionaires and the millionaires in Major League Baseball, eventually, it's not going to affect the youth levels and all that as far as, like, those will all still exist. Like we said, it might end up leading to different destinations going forward. Yeah. Everybody might not reach for MLB. They might try to reach for some different level of professional baseball. But if, to Tommy's point, it does affect those levels of baseball, it's like absolutely ridiculous that this is going to now fuck over all this shit for all these kids that love this game and are playing the game simply because they fucking love it at 10, 11, 12 years old. And because, they love playing it. Obviously, they're good at it. They love the competitiveness of it. They love the team. Whatever it is, these kids love going out there on these weekends and having these big tournaments and being a part of all that. They're not getting paid shit to do it. They're out there for the trophy and to try to win and for the competitive nature of it. But if what's going on with the billionaires and the millionaires at the top level of the sport really is going to fuck up that side of it, I have a huge, huge problem with that. And I think if that were to happen, that's going to hurt MLB's image even more. Like, you want to talk about, like, trying to bounce back. Good luck bouncing back if everybody in the whole public sees that now their 10-year-old can't play Little League baseball season because you've got a bunch of grown men that make all this money that can't seem to figure out a way to compromise.
Yeah.
Good luck bouncing back when that's the public image. As unfair as it might be, that's going to be the public image because, at some point, all they're going to look like is a bunch of petulant children that can't seem to move past their little issues and come to, a solution for the betterment of everybody. It's almost how we look at the political scene in this country right now, isn't it? We sit here and we laugh at the politics on both sides because it's just a fucking mess. Why do we want to do that with sports? Sports is supposed to be the thing that gets us so we can forget about politics and just go watch sports. And now we're having the same conversations about these big league, these professional sports organizations as we do about politicians.
And Greg, what's funny too? Greg was talking about it last night on last night's show about sports is coming back in general, but you have the UFC, which is guys bleeding and sweating and just knocking the shit out of each other, and they're back and they're rolling right now. So like,
hey, what would be awesome is if they made them wear a mask while they fall. Like, we're gonna be all like, it's okay, but you gotta wear the mask. So I want to see it, man. Conor McGregor and Anderson Silva with 2 masks on.
You've seen that today, right?
Yeah, they agreed to that fight.
Well, it's social media agreement. It's not contract agreement.
I feel like with Conor McGregor, any type of agreement he makes, he doesn't worry about signing pen to paper. He's only writing checks that his mouth can cash. You know what I mean? So if it came out of his mouth, other way around, maybe I fucked up that saying. I don't know, but whatever. You know what the fuck I was trying to say there, Steven.
I'm just.
If it came out of McGregor's mouth, I believe it. I think if he says I'm going to fight this guy, I think I believe Conor McGregor's going to fight that guy.
Yeah, we'll see, man. It should be interesting, but getting back to it. But like when you look at it, like what Tommy was saying, baseball missed a big opportunity. Like you guys were saying, you see other sports moving forward and stuff like that.
That part's 100% true.
Kind of. You see, we had Kellen Herr on. He already said, he's seen some more stuff on all social media pages and stuff from him being in the cage fighting. Obviously, he stepped in. He has another fight coming up on the 6th. These guys are taking the opportunity they have and they're running with it. If you're starting to see single guys in this sport being able to do that, what's going to happen to a sport on a larger scale with many more athletes than what the UFC holds? It's just one of those things where you basically punch yourself in your eye to spite yourself at that point in time.
Well, I'll say this. I brought up NASCAR earlier, and I think I'm the only NASCAR fan here. Steven, you're not a NASCAR guy, right?
Oh, man, when the Earnhart's left, I left.
Okay, but so you at least got some old school NASCAR in, I like that. Okay.
I'll go back if I need to.
I go way back. My dad was an old school Rusty Wallace fan. He was a DW fan before that. So, I go way back. My dad raced dirt bikes back in the day in South Jersey, before motocross was even a thing. So I got a little redneck in me. But they're one of the sports that even their CEO came out, the guy that runs their sport, not their CEO, their president of competition or whatever, Steve Phelps, came out and said that he thinks NASCAR, what they're really hoping is that they get the benefit from a television viewership perspective and all that they get the benefit with all these other sports being out. And their first race back at Darlington a couple Sundays ago had 6.1 million viewers, which is 3 times their normal viewership. Yeah. So there's and that weekend they actually were the #1 sporting event of any kind on TV. And they included professional wrestling and stuff like that in with it. That's what we're talking about, niche sports that will benefit from this.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. The niche sports they're gonna benefit from it because when you take the 4 major sports out of it, right? And you put a NASCAR on television without any sports for the past 3 months now, your views are going to go up. You're gonna get people watching because why? Because it's entertaining, right? And even though some people might not like it, it's something to watch, right? There's something to watch on television.
And even if you don't care about guys going in a circle, you're hoping somebody might wreck. There might be a fight. People are slapping each other around. There's at least something that you can get entertainment out of from a NASCAR perspective. No matter what. Who doesn't like to see a couple? Like, wouldn't it be great if they like hockey? They obviously allow it, but like in every sport, just allowed two dudes to square up and fist fight just because they felt like it. You made me mad. Fuck you. Let's fight. That'd be awesome. Hockey's the only sport to let it happen. NASCAR lets it happen too. But like, what is like in baseball? Like when Bryce Harper went to charge the mound to try to beat the crap out of Hunter Strickland a few years ago. Like,
yeah.
Like, you guys can both stay in the game. Nobody's ejected. Nobody's suspended. That was fucking awesome. That was good for the sport. Put eyes on us. Thank you. You guys rock. Like, they shouldn't be suspended guys for that. They should be thanking them. Like, it brought attention to us. Something that otherwise wouldn't have happened.
There's some professionalism to it at the same point in time.
Like, fuck professionalism at this point. At this point.
They're selling a product to families and kids, so we get why they do it. But that's why we have combat sports at the same time. That's why we have WWE.
Like at this point, I don't,
As far as NASCAR go, I absolutely get it. You're only going in a circle, so you need to do something else. I get that.
Yeah, anybody that goes in a circle for that long is going to get out of the car ready to fight somebody. You know what I mean?
But at the end of the day, I get that. But with the other sports, it's kind of a different feel, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, of course. No, I'm just saying, it's you. That's what baseball is going to. You know what's going to bring baseball back? We'll get serious again here in a minute. We'll transition into our Boyd Halliday conversation. But in order to save baseball after this whole thing, it's going to be like MLB Slugfest, where guys can just like charge the mound and smack each other with bats, and drop kick each other. It'll be MLB Slugfest out there.
Oh man!
Don't get suspended. Don't get fined.
Well, no, man.
You were a video game guy. Don't tell me MLB Slugfest wasn't awesome.
Oh, great game
too. You're gonna see Bean Fest like at least a couple times a day.
What's that?
I said if that's the case, we might as well let the pitchers go at it too and see Bean Fest as well.
Absolutely. That should be like a pregame activity.
I know Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa and all those guys on Houston are happy they ain't playing right now because you saw it in spring training. I mean, they even if your name wasn't big name on Houston, you were still getting plunked here and there. So
how cool? But see, how cool would it be if that's the idea we're going with? Like, so now, okay, cool, throw in all those guys, and then just let them guys charge them out, and now everybody can fist fight because we all know there's a lot of guys in baseball that probably want to try to fist fight Carlos Correa at the moment or Jose Altuve at the moment. So if you throw at them and they decide to charge them out, now everybody gets what they want. We've got an old-fashioned Donnybrook on our hands, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, man. I'll say one thing. No matter what, we all know when baseball comes back, no one's going to be hit by more pitches than the Houston Astros.
No.
I think everybody's going to get hit by pitches because pitchers are going to be like so rusty and like off their game. They're going to have to spend so little time working on all of their control issues. You're going to see guys getting hit all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, not every pitcher is obsessed like our man Roy, right?
Who's the Joe, whatever the hell his name was, the guy for the Dodgers? He was working on his changeup and he broke the window in his house because he missed the target by like 6 feet.
Oh yeah.
The relief pitcher.
Yeah.
I can't fucking remember his name. Wears the glasses, I believe. He's got the cool goggles that he wears.
Yeah, he pitched for Boston for a little bit too.
Yeah, he did. Now he pitches for the Dodgers. He working on his changeup and he broke a window in his house. Like, bro, like you probably should keep that one out of game action. That'll be like when Rick Bowman.
The screen was the size of a barn, and he still missed.
Yeah. Then Bob Uecker comes in just a bit outside.
This is exactly why Ralphie has need to see Major League.
I know. He's fucking all this up. These inside jokes would be awesome, and Ralphie's fucking it up. You guys saw. I know you guys saw ESPN's become obsessed with documentaries since The Last Dance. Killed everything. That was another one. I was actually surprised. We talked about the NASCAR ratings that Sunday. The NASCAR race got better ratings than one of the I think it was the final 2 episodes, or maybe episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance or whatever, which was surprising. I thought The Last Dance was going to dominate.
Did you finally watch it?
Yeah, I've seen the first 6 episodes of it. I'm going to finish up the final few here, but yeah, I've been binge watching it. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
It's been phenomenal.
Are you guys looking forward to seeing the Lance series drop?
The Lance Armstrong one?
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back and watch that one too, and that's what I was talking about. ESPN, right after they get done with The Last Dance, they transition. They got the Lance Armstrong documentary. They've announced for next spring, 2021, I believe it is, the Tom Brady,
I think so. Yeah.
Peyton Manning, Tiger Woods, whatever it is, they're doing like they're trying to get in the minds of the greatest athletes of all time, the greatest winners of all time. So they've seemed to become obsessed with this new, this is going to be their new thing, a lot like the 30 for 30s were, I guess, there for a while. And one of the ones they're going to have is the Roy Halladay documentary. I think it's debuting Sunday, or is it debuting tomorrow night? I know tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary. I know tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary of Roy's perfect game, and I think Sunday they're debuting the Roy Halladay documentary.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy, obviously, everything that's come out since Roy's, the whole tragic accident with the plane and all that. We've learned a lot about the struggles he was going through post-career. The painkiller addiction. I was actually reading an article earlier today about it, where his wife was heavily involved in the article. And
yeah, it comes out tomorrow, May 29th.
Comes out tomorrow. Okay, yeah. So so I was reading this earlier, and this is something I didn't know. Now I have a cool story for everybody. Ralph, you might have heard this story. Stephen, I know you haven't. I've got a cool story I'll share here in a couple minutes that really relates into all of this. But something that I don't think any of us knew up until maybe this article came out that I just read earlier this morning. I think it maybe came out yesterday. Was that according to his wife, so his wife was confirming all this. This isn't speculation anymore as much as it's been confirmed. Right after, remember his final year with the Phillies, 2013 or whatever it was that year.
Yeah,
where he was just so hurt and banged up at all times. Yeah. Kyle Kendrick was heavily involved in this story because apparently Kyle Kendrick really, really looked up to Roy Halladay and used to follow him all around the clubhouse. People used to call him Little Roy in the clubhouse. Apparently, his teammates called him Little Roy. That's how much he looked up to him. And Rich Doobie was quoted in it, the former Phillies pitching coach, and they said, that final year, Roy, you would look at him, his eyes were glassy, and multiple people confronted him about, like, hey, dude, like, are you on drugs? What are you taking here, bro? Like, people could tell there was something wrong with him. He was in so much pain, and people were just suspicious that he was taking, painkillers of some kind, and he was. But it turned out that he was abusing painkillers so bad that when he retired after that year, that 2013, his final year, that fall, they actually had to send him. He went to inpatient rehab down in Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach or someplace like that because he was so dependent on the pain pills that he was going through heavy withdrawal. Now the baseball season was over and all that, and the story that his wife was telling was about him laying in a bed. He was sweating. He had flu-like symptoms. And of course, anybody that's going through withdrawal knows that's 100%. That's withdrawal symptoms there. He had become so dependent on the pain pills that he had to go to rehab. And that was something that didn't become public because obviously, he's high profile and really private. And his family did a great job, and all of his personal inner circle people did a great job of keeping that private. But that's how much this guy was struggling post-baseball. And then his wife talked about depression and all that also, kicking in because, I guess, when you commit your whole adult life, I guess, to doing something like that, once you don't have that to do anymore, you don't know what to do with yourself. We've seen that with plenty of athletes.
And that's what she said. She said once he was done with baseball, he kind of got lost to where it's like, and like you said, Zach, when you've been doing something for 30 plus years of your life, every single day, waking up, grinding, weight room, training, right? Going to ballparks, doing this. Yeah. And it's all over. It's like, what do I do now? You know,
especially when you have the work ethic that he did, because Roy was known for being that tirelessly hard worker throughout the game.
Oh, absolutely.
So and so I can completely understand that side of it, where it's like almost like, what do I do with myself now? I don't know what else to do with myself. This is what I do. I've seen UFC fighters say that, where like they get their ass kicked, and it's kind of like they're older, they're near the end of their career, and there's been like conversations where like they've revealed like, behind the scenes conversation that guy's had with his wife, and his wife's like, hey, you just need to call it quits. And he's like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I can't call it quits. Like, this is what I do. Like, I don't know what else to do with myself.
And also the other thing about what, There was I think it was like, maybe like 2 to 3 years after Brett Favre retired, and the article came out on him, and he even said like there were some days where I couldn't roll out of bed until I took a painkiller because it was that bad. You know what I mean?
Favre's a great example of Favre went through that early in his career.
Yeah.
He actually, like, if you watch his Football Life documentary and all that, you'll learn a lot about that. I mean, obviously, it was public back in the day when he was playing, too. That wasn't one that really became private. They announced that he was going to rehab. He was the NFL MVP at that time, so it was going to be hard to hide the NFL MVP going to rehab. But they made the announcement with him and Mike Holmgren and his wife, hey, I've got to go get help. And he was abusing Vicodin, I think he said, and even he openly talks about it to this day. But Brett Favre was a guy that played through so many injuries, I don't even look at that situation and, like, it doesn't bother me one bit. Like, of course you were. Like, a guy like you, with all the injuries that guy played through, like, of course he was taking pain pills of some kind. You play in the NFL at a time when that's what they did. Trainers just handed you a bunch of pain pills and said, here, take these. You'll feel better. You'll be able to play Sunday. So it's a little bit different. But that's a great point that there's another high-profile athlete that dealt with the same type of stuff. The story I wanted to tie into it was I umpired 2 days before Roy Halladay died. I actually umpired his AAU team. His son played on an AAU team down here in the Tampa area. Roy was coaching it, and I just happened to umpire that tournament that weekend. And obviously being, somebody that grew up in the Philadelphia area, knowing who Roy was, now I got to sit here and act professional and not go all fanboy. Hey, Mr. Halladay, can I get your autograph? Like, this is really unprofessional. I just got to sit here and act like you're anybody else. And, it's funny. Like, it was Roy Halladay, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I've dealt with all types of ex-pro ball players since being down here. I've umpired Gary Sheffield's kids' games and shit like that. So, it was whatever, just another thing. First game, he's bitching about every single close pitch. Like, just yapping about every pitch. And it was making me laugh a little bit because, of course, here's a guy that used to pitch in the big leagues. Of course he's going to yap about the strike zone. That's what he's going to do. He's trying to fight for, everything for his players. So it kind of made me laugh a little bit more than anything else. But, like, he was under control for the most part. He was yapping, but he was under control. Then there was like an hour break between game 1 and game 2, and we came back for game 2. And he was a completely different person in game 2, like super fired up, really aggressive, kind of agitated. And, like, at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. But, like, the more these, like, stories have come out since his death with the people in his inner circle talking about just how much of, a painkiller addiction and all that he had, I was like, oh, wow, like, how much sense does this all of a sudden make? Like, I actually got to see that, I think firsthand, that, how much his attitude changed within an hour from when I had him in the game 1 compared to game 2. It was almost sad to see, wow, like, this is what this guy was going through. And then that was literally 2 days before the accident with his plane. It was really, really, like, you could almost, I could relate with her even more, like, seeing she's writing all this, talking about this is what he was going through. Like, yeah, I saw that. I was around him for 4 hours and I saw it. The personality changes. And that definitely was not the Roy Halladay that I remember watching pitch in the big leagues. It's just crazy. I don't want to speculate about what happened with the plane crash. I know obviously there was morphine in his system and the amphetamines and the painkiller and yada yada. I don't want to speculate about any of that, but it was crazy to me once I found out all this information that got released going forward after the fact, to look back on that situation a couple of days before the whole accident and be like, wow, like, geez, like, it's kind of sad. Like, yeah, the guy clearly was fighting some personal demons that he just, as good of an athlete as he was and as great as he was at, I guess, the mental side of being able to perfect being a hard worker and a great baseball player, he couldn't seem to overcome those personal demons on the personal side of it. Hopefully that doesn't become his legacy going forward. In 20 years, you don't want the conversation to be.
Even when he was at Toronto,
way overshadows that. It doesn't like no matter how big or spectacular that death was, I don't think it was like 100% contributed to drug use. So I don't think it.
Yeah, I feel like that's unfair, and I agree. Like, I feel like the report came out, tried to make it contributed to drug use, and I feel like that's unfair.
Because that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the people talking. But at the end of the day, it would have already came out if it actually was that. I know people are still trying to paint it that way, but it would have came out.
And what's silly about that is, like, who knows? Yeah, maybe that did contribute to it. Maybe the guy flat out wanted to just kill himself and flew his plane into the ocean. But none of us know that, and it's really silly and completely disrespectful to even try to sit here and speculate about that side of it. And the other side about it is people have made up, oh, he's taking all these pain pills. Well, yeah, anybody that's like, for example, if you smoke weed every day, right, like weed affects you differently than somebody that doesn't smoke weed at all, and all of a sudden they smoke weed for the first time and they just go, complete, like they're kind of loopy for that, first couple hours after they do it. Compared to the person who smokes weed every day and is your typical pothead, and it's something that, it's an everyday thing for him. Like, if he was that addicted to pain pills, those pills being in his system, I'd actually be more concerned if they weren't in his system. You know what I mean? Like, he needed those pills in his system to function at a regular level. Unfortunately, that's how drug addiction works, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah, the worst thing to do would be to not have it, because you'd probably be 100 times more agitated, on edge, etc. But
right. So that's why I felt like it was really, really completely disrespectful to just try to. The way the story was written about having all those drugs in his system, I felt the same way as you, Steve. It was almost as if they were saying, like, this helped contribute to all that, and I don't think none of us know any of that. I don't even think his wife and his family have fully come to, like. I think, like, Brady's been very open. His wife has been very, very open about, all of this since his death. And I think even they're kind of like, listen, we don't know. Who knows what was going on in that situation?
But it's also because she's not trying to correct that perception of the events that circled around his death at the same time, too. So.
Yeah, I think she's done a really, really good job. I love what his wife done.
The dude was a great ball player.
He was, exactly, and he's a Hall of Famer now, that's what his legacy should be, is that he's a Hall of Fame ball player. But what I really liked about what his wife said was, she said something similar to what we just talked about, was she doesn't ever want his legacy 20, 30, 40 years down the road to be, oh, remember that, Roy Halladay guy, what a great pitcher, Hall of Fame player that, died in that plane crash when he crashed his plane in the Gulf of Mexico. She doesn't want that to be the resting legacy. So I feel like she's done such a great job of trying to be as open as possible about all of this, while also trying to keep the attention on the right things. And his ex-teammates and the people that have been in his circle, the Rich Doobies and the Kyle Kendricks and the Carlos Ruizes, Chase Utley came out and made public comments, obviously, at the Roy Halladay Memorial. People that Chris Carpenter was just on ESPN earlier today, and they were, they've been great friends for going back to the Blue Jays days in the late 90s. I feel like people that have known him for the longest time throughout his big league career have done a great job of really trying to bring the attention back to what he was as a ball player instead of everything else. Because even when you look at him as a ball player, what was everything you heard about Roy Halladay, the ball player? That he was also one of the greatest dudes you would ever come across in your life, right? One of the greatest workers, had one of the best work ethics. He did everything the right way. So, like, everybody's got skeletons in their closet, not just in sports or, famous people. Everybody, whoever you are, you've got skeletons in your closet of some kind. We all have personal issues and personal demons that we deal with. And, the idea that that's, more of the focus for Roy since that plane crash than his playing career is a little bit sad. But I'm really interested to see how this documentary spins it. I think this documentary is going to be really, really good for his legacy, because obviously, this documentary wasn't just going to be made and released without permission from his family, and people like that.
And
so I feel like
his son was playing. What was it? 2 years ago in that one showcase game for Canada, correct? The one.
Yeah, and his son now, that son pitches at Penn State now. Actually,
and he's at Penn State now. Yeah.
So I'm actually really excited about this documentary. I think it's going to do a lot of good for Roy and his image and his whole legacy. The guy, already, if anybody that watched him pitch knows how good of a pitcher he was. So hopefully, this puts all the attention on that.
I'm at the point where I don't think no matter what was said after his death up until this documentary, it wasn't going to affect his legacy in any way, shape, or form. You
don't think it would have?
Go ahead.
You don't think it would have affected it?
I don't. Like, it's one of those things, like, it happened after his career. If it was something that was, like, the last few years before his career happened, that, like he hadn't retired already when that happened, then it might have been something that kind of played into it. That I think he was just far enough removed from his playing career where it doesn't have any effect on it. At least in my opinion. I'm sure we all have our takes on things like that. But in my opinion, What a person does in their private life should have nothing to do with what is perceived about his professional life.
No, I completely agree with that. Completely agree. Unfortunately, it seems like unfairly everybody, or at least the majority of sports fans, seem to take what people are off the field, away from what they do in sports, and try to like, oh, he's a bad person. Well, yeah, a lot of people are bad people. Like, I'm more concerned about what the guy was on the field than I am necessarily who he was as a person.
The difference between being an asshole of a human being, there's a difference between being obsessed as a person with who you are. Like, listen, there's different things that happen in life, and we're all judged for whatever reason. But like I said, this is one of those things where it just doesn't coincide with it. Where it's not like what he did affected other people. It was just something that he did that affected himself after his playing career.
I completely agree. It's not like he was beating his wife. It's not like he was,
like some child sex ring or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Be different.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. 100%.
But one thing for sure, I think it should bring more eyeballs to who Roy was as a person, player.
Correct.
That's where I think it will help.
He spent a lot of time in Toronto, and unfortunately, unless you were a hardcore baseball fan, the casual fan maybe didn't know quite how great he was in Toronto. And I think that's where the hardcore baseball fan knows how great of a player he was. But hopefully, this documentary and all that, the casual fan, I feel like really, it's sad, but it's true. The casual fan probably knows more about Roy Halladay over the last 3 years because of this plane accident than they actually do about his playing career and how great of a pitcher he actually was. The hardcore fans know how great he was, but the casuals maybe don't. And that's something that hopefully this documentary will help with.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things you just touched on. It's like, but we already touched on it earlier, just they don't develop stars. The fact that Roy Halladay wasn't the face of baseball for at least the pitching aspect for the better part of the last 10 years, there should be a problem. Why is it the fact that the only name ever people know of is Clayton Kershaw or guys like that? Roy Halladay dominated baseball for the better part of 12 years.
One of your favorite 10 pitchers of all time?
Just outside.
Just outside. Okay. Now,
and even when he was in Toronto, he was dominating.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, let's piggyback off of Steven's point for 1 minute. And Ralph, I know you said 5:30. Can we extend it to 5:35?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. If you piggyback off the point about, why was he not turned into the face of baseball from a pitching perspective? We went back to the 90s earlier when Griffey was the face then. What changed between the 90s and now? Because I feel like from a pitching perspective, guys like Greg Maddux and guys like that, throughout the whole 90s, whether he was with the Cubs, whether he was with the Braves, everybody knew who Greg Maddux was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What has changed between the 80s and the 90s and now, where a guy like Greg Maddux in the 90s was a name that everybody knew till now, where, like you said, Clayton Kershaw is one of the few pitchers anybody even knows who the hell he is.
Well, it's marketing. It's going back to marketing, Zach.
It wasn't just Glavine. That whole Atlanta rotation, Smoltz, Glavine. Everyone knew who those guys were.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just some of these guys they don't have personalities. Everyone loved Smoltz because he was just kind of that fire dude.
Oh, dude, he was a dog. John Smoltz. It didn't matter who you were. Once you got in that box with John Smoltz, you were getting his best. Every time he took the mound, you were getting his best, no matter what. And he was a dog. He was a dog for the Braves.
And Glavine was the kind of opposite of that. He was just like the I guess the Roy Halladay of that era, quiet, hardworking, and just pitched.
A lot like Cliff Lee.
Yeah.
A lot like Cliff Lee. Quiet, hard worker, dominant lefty, but he didn't really talk a lot. He was kind of to himself. More of a finesse guy than he was an overpower you type pitcher, but he was dominant at what he did.
Cliff Lee's spike curveball was phenomenal.
Now, obviously, I don't want to. I don't want to try to Steven, I saw your look. I don't want to make it seem like I'm comparing Cliff Lee to him. Glavine's one of the 300 games, but I'm just saying their personality and their makeup as a pitcher was very similar.
I was fine with that comparison with that one, but I mean, there's a lot of players on that list. I mean, just right outside of it, out of that top 10, you're gonna have guys like Tom Seaver, Jimmy Palmer, And one of my guys, I love to watch pitch, Jim Abbott, man. How could you not admire Jim Abbott? That
with
guy,
the one hand, I love it. Yeah, do a no-hitter with the Yankees. Do a no-hitter with the Yankees with one hand. Yeah, Ralphie, you have no idea who that is. I know you don't. He was born with one hand. He had a stub on his hand. So he used to pitch. He'd keep the glove on his stub on his right hand, and he was a lefty. And he'd throw the pitch and then transfer the glove to his left hand. So he'd throw the pitch, put the glove on his left hand, and be ready to field. And he threw a no-hitter for the Yankees one year.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah, that's a great name, Jim Abbott. Yeah, who would be, we don't necessarily have to give 10, but just give me some of your favorite pitchers of all time, Steven.
Oh, man, I guess, Nolan Ryan. Yeah, it has to be. And it's way more than, for what people know about with the fight with Robin Ventura and all that. The guy he was an all-timer, man.
Wrestled steers in the offseason to keep in shape. Like, you got to love somebody like that. He lived on a Texas farm and wrestled cattle in the offseason.
I mean, we gotta go bring some Philly guys in there. Old school Lefty Grove. It's just you can't. I know it's more removed and all that, and it just you have to bring them in there.
Way back like LeBron's hairline.
Out of it because I mentioned Grove. Carl's gonna be just outside of that. Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson. There you go. Dominant name from that time.
He was one of the first handful of guys that came in. After Jackie with the big crossover. Anybody who watched HBO during the mid '90s got to see some cool documentaries they did, like with Jackie Robinson. Josh Gibson is a guy that a lot of old school baseball fans know that people don't really know about today. He's probably one of the best power hitters that no one ever knows about. That was the reason why I kind of went back and found out about Bob. Sandy Koufax.
Oh, yeah. Legend.
You just had the guys like that. I mean,
pitching, there isn't, you can't talk about great pitchers in Major League history without putting Sandy Koufax in that conversation. Like, he's one of the OGs in that conversation.
What about good old Randy Johnson?
Randy is number 2.
I'd put Randy in my top 10 favorite. That's why I wanted it to be favorite, because it doesn't, the guy could absolutely suck, but there could be something about him that made you just love who he was as a person, personality, look, something. And Randy had all that for me. Obviously, he was dominant, but you gotta love the fact that he had the long hair and he was 6'10".
The mustache.
And the mustache. Yeah, you had to love all of that about him. That is
all like he did, but he was throwing gas.
Remember when Mark McGuire hit that ball to the moon off of him? McGuire hit that ball with the A's, 538 feet or something crazy in the Kingdome.
I don't think it's landed yet.
Dude, I still go back and watch that highlight on YouTube. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That was back during when, baseball was, everybody stick a needle in their ass, see how far you can hit a ball.
You think what's his face? Another guy that pitched for the Braves, and that obviously the Oakland Athletics is Tim Hudson. You think he's up there?
Yeah, he's not in my favorite. You know who's in my favorite of all time? But another old school Braves pitcher is Phil Niekro. I love the Niekro brothers. Those knuckleballers. Come on, man. You gotta have this. Remember when Phil Niekro got caught cheating at 48 years old? He had the nail file in his back pocket and shit, and they called him it's like Phil Niekro spent the final 8 years of his career doctoring a baseball. It made him last he pitched so close to 50 just because he was doctoring the baseball with a nail file and everything else you could possibly think of. But old school type stuff. You gotta love Niekro.
You think Chris Carpenter makes that list up there?
He's not on my top 10 favorite. No, I mean, maybe if you pitched in Philly, but
you need to go back and watch some old baseball, Ralph. I'm serious, bro. You need to.
Rowley Fingers makes my list just because he had a cool ass mustache. How can you not love Rowley Fingers with the mustache?
If you want to go with cool ass mustaches, then we have to go Rowley Fingers.
Yeah, the greatest mustache of all time in any professional sport ever is Rowley Mustache, and second's probably Dale Earnhardt Sr.
There you go.
But here, I got to get your guys. He's a former Philly, a former rival, somebody we love to hate. Where'd you put Pedro Martinez?
Pedro's definitely on my list. Love Pedro. Pedro.
He's top 5.
Oh, absolutely. And
where you have to see where you put him. because of where stuff they've done in the field and off the field. Where do you put Rocket? Where do you put Schilling?
Kurt Schilling is a great name. Schilling's actually maybe at the top of my list. You got people that are like they drive that Kurt Schilling's a Hall of Famer bandwagon, and I'm one of the people that drives the Kurt Schilling's a Hall of Famer bandwagon. When you watched him with those Phillies teams in the 90s that were absolute garbage, like 97, 98, this dude was striking out over 300 batters a year. If we actually had a better offense, this dude's winning 20 games during that time. When you look at what he did with the Red Sox after he left, what he did with the Diamondbacks after he left, the postseason
it was still dominant. It was still dominant, Zach. He was.
Kurt Schilling is the definition of a Hall of Fame pitcher. Kurt Schilling has no business waiting this long to be in the Hall of Fame in my book. And you got people that want to sit there and say, oh, well, you can't count the postseason stats. Oh, listen, the dude is arguably the greatest postseason pitcher of all time. You could look at all the gutsy performances and put them, Kurt Schilling maybe has 3 of the best postseason performances of all time in baseball history. When you count the bloody sock game with the Red Sox. Listen, you could call me biased. The game he pitched in Game 5 of the World Series in '93 for the Phillies with their backs against the wall against the Blue Jays is, I think, one of the greatest performances we're ever going to see in baseball history from somebody. He threw 148 pitches in that game to throw a complete he threw a 5-hit complete game shutout, I believe, in that game with 148 pitches. And the Phillies were down 3-1 in that series. Gave the team hope going into Game 6 after losing like 15-14 the day before. The guy, when you put the ball in his hand in pressure situations, he was money. He might be the best big game pitcher in MLB history. And he's had former teammates that have come out and said that about him. Yeah. So Schilling's absolutely on my list. Love that name, Steve.
All right, number 1, since we're right up against it.
My number 1 guy, my favorite pitcher of all time, I'll give you my top 3. Because Schilling's in my top 3. Pedro's in my top 3.
But who's
and because of what he did in that 08 team that I was so engaged with, Cole Hamels is in my top 3.
Who is the
one? Cole is up there for you?
I watched Cole dominate the 08 World Series and then actually was 5 feet away from him at the World Series parade that I attended. So I don't know. Cole always has a cheesy place in my heart, I guess you could call it. Who's your top 3, Steven? Give me your top 3 favorite of all time.
My favorite or who I think should be 1, 2, 3?
I would say that's why I worded it as favorite, because I don't necessarily care about how great they were, but your 3 favorite pitchers of all time.
To me, it has to be Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, and Nolan Ryan.
Okay. Any of those names.
Listen, Nolan Ryan, his longevity, the no-hitter, he was a part of some great teams, both in Houston and Texas, and played with the Mets and all that.
With the Mets back in the day,
all that, and then we already spoke on Randy and all that, but the one name we all didn't mention, who's probably arguably statistically wise, is Walter Johnson. I didn't know none of us mentioned him.
Who?
Walter Johnson.
Oh, Walter Johnson. I didn't hear you said it. Now, of course, Walter Johnson. Now, Walter Johnson's, obviously one of the greatest pitchers of all time. I haven't, I don't know, I know Walter Johnson is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Outside of that, I don't know enough about his personality, about his personal life. I haven't read enough about him for me to form any other opinion outside of just him being a great pitcher.
None of us knew because he pitched in the 20s and 30s.
Of course, you can always read autobiographies about guys and learn a lot about guys that you would have had no idea about unless you read that autobiography or whatever. Great talent. For me, I guess I build why are guys my favorite players? It comes down to them being great, and then there also has to be something about their personality or something about them personally that I love outside of how good they were.
I guess because I've also detached myself from the fan part of it to a point where I just objectively look at everything. Where as you notice, we didn't mention a whole lot of Phillies or anything like that. Right. It's what defines greatness as far as what pitchers are.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say, and the reason I wanted to word it as favorite was because I feel like greatest pitchers of all time, completely different conversation. Favorite pitchers of all time, you could have a guy that completely sucked and played in the big leagues for 3 years, but you just threw something about him. He had a big ass nose, or Who's the guy that remember the dude for the?
I'll give you this. Give me one of your obscure Philly pitchers you used to love to watch.
A non-Philly pitcher?
No, a Philly pitcher that shouldn't be no reason you should name you would like to watch.
That I used to love to watch and has no business. Paul Bird.
Mine's Joe Blayton.
Because for two reasons. Paul Bird had that, the sidearm delivery, like the really, really sidearm delivery. And I remember being a little kid, and I was down at my grandparents' beach house when the Phillies and the Braves were playing. That was probably like 1999 or something like that. And the Phillies obviously had a good start to that year. They tailed off down the stretch, but they were right there with the Braves in a division battle come the All-Star break. And there was a big fight in the Phillies-Braves game in Atlanta between because Paul Bird had hit Eddie Perez for like the second time in a week. And there was a massive brawl. And I mean, it just, as a little kid, I was maybe 6 years old, 7 years old. I'll never forget, like, my grandfather was like, Jackie, there's a fight in the ball game. And I just came running in my head. Everybody just all haywire. I'll never forget Paul. He pitched for the Phillies for maybe 2 years. So there's a great example of a guy. He was actually an all-star in '99, had a good year. But there's an example of a guy that probably has no business in anybody's conversation.
My obscure one is Terry Mulholland, man.
Great name. Gotta love Terry Mulholland. My dad loves Terry Mulholland. That '93 team was his favorite team of all time.
Yeah. What about you, Ralphie?
My number one is obviously, I was born in '96, so I'm going off the pictures that I've watched growing up. Obviously, towards the end of his career, I saw a little bit of Randy Johnson, but just watching him growing up, he was still dominant. So he's my number one. Two, when I was playing Little League Baseball, obviously, or going into high school, I wanted to be a pitcher a little bit. And who was on the TV a lot, and they were good at that time, was the San Francisco Giants. So I try to be like a little Tim Lincecum here and there. The weird delivery.
That's a really good name.
The weird delivery with the arch back, and then he went.
Yeah.
And the also guy that I really liked to pitch, he pitched for Florida, and he won the World Series. Was Josh Beckett. Love Josh Beckett.
See, I love Josh Beckett too. I thought you were going to go Dontrell Willis just because Dontrell he was another one with that delivery. I used to love watching Dontrell Willis with that high leg kick.
Yep.
He was so much fun for a couple of years.
Yeah, those were my three guys, man. I don't know why. I just love. I just love whenever it was Sunday Night Baseball and the Giants were playing, man. And if Tim Lincecum was playing, it was pitching that night, I was locked in and watching, man. You know
what I love about those three names? Lincecum and Beckett are two bulldogs, two of the biggest bulldogs. And it sucks. The way that Lincecum's career ended, right? Obviously, he fell off a little bit with the Giants and got himself out of the league, and then he picked it back up with the Angels for maybe 2 months, and then obviously he's still out of the league. But Josh Beckett, yet again, man, like you were saying, Zach, whenever he took them out, man, that dude was a dog. Obviously, a World Series champion with Florida, and I think he won one. Did he win one with Boston as well? He was on. He was there with Boston. Yeah, he was on. Yeah, so he's got two of them. Yeah, he was the ace for that 07 team, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good names. If I'm going to try to be unbiased, I might take Hamels out of my top three and put Maddox in it just because Greg Maddox might be like non-Philly pitcher. He might be like my favorite, like most respected non-Philly pitcher of all time. Pedro would have been, but Pedro eventually pitched for the Phillies, so now he's a Philly. But like Maddox is a guy that kicked our ass how many times as a little kid, and I still respect the hell out of the guy. How can you not, like, the dude threw 89 miles per hour, but, had 6 pitches that he could hit, a spot perfectly with and throw for strikes and get you out with. So much fun to watch. And you'll love this name. Maybe the final name we'll mention before we leave, Stephen, from that 93 team. My dad loves this guy, Danny Jackson. What a character and a personality. Gotta love Danny Jackson, don't you? DJ, Ralph, you have no idea, but Danny Jackson used to rip his jersey off. Like, he would, in celebration in the clubhouse after, they won the NL East, he just, tore his jersy in half like he was the Hulk. He was the Hulk, and then he would, just rip his jersey in half. Danny Jackson's phenomenal. I think if you're just going to make a list of a guy, like you say, he didn't pitch for the Phillies for a long time, but, man, was he a memorable personality, a memorable character in Phillies history when you look at that 93 team.
Yes, sir. Danny Jackson. I was on. As soon as you thought that, all I'm thinking is him ripping off his shirt and doing the Hulk Hogan.
Oh man, so awesome, so awesome. Larry Anderson was on that team too, and Larry, I mean, LA, what a character. We Ralphie, you know of LA's personality because he was a announcer, but Steve, don't remember when he was a pitcher.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to just get it to that hour 15 mark even, so that we can get out of here with an even time. But it's been a lot of fun, boys.
Yeah,
Steven,
man.
thanks for joining. Dude, you have to come over here with me again in the future, man, because you've been a lot of fun.
Just let me know, man. I'm always around. I've been listen, I've been following sports so long I forgot about more stuff than I remember at this point in time.
There you go. I love it, man. I love it. So much fun. Steven Reichel.
Baseball, football, hockey. Like, listen, I'm one of these guys that, I was always a four-sport person. You know, when I started getting into this, MMA is what actually got me into doing sports talk radio. But my passion in the four sports before that. So it's like I just want to keep building the knowledge up here and doing this stuff with you guys is always fun every time we do it. And
Absolutely.
Regardless if I'm learning from you or you guys are learning from me, at the end of the day, we're here to inform everybody about what's going on.
I just like having fun with it. You know, I need people to debate and argue and not be afraid to engage.
But here's the thing, like you
tell me to shut the hell up when I need.
Yeah, but you always get these things like we all have a point, but we always have a disagreeing point without hating each other.
Right.
People have to get personal about it. Like, listen, there's going to come a point in time we're all going to disagree with each other. You don't have to spit venom when it comes down to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I might call you a moron. I'm going to say, hey, buddy, what's up? We getting a beer?
I saw I wasn't allowed. I was told I wasn't allowed to respond to your Facebook comment the other day.
I was being a smartass.
Tommy told me I wasn't allowed to respond for personal reasons. Listen, my beef with Donovan goes way back, and it's nothing personal. But the guy was a great player, and I'll never deny that. He's a borderline Hall of Famer in my book. If he gets in, he gets in. I think his numbers are extremely borderline, but a great player. I just didn't like his personality. But listen, like I said, my beef goes way back with him. I've got no problem with Donovan, the football player. He was a great quarterback.
There's no more question about this. Listen, for his losing your lunch, all that put aside, I think he picked the wrong comparison with Aikman. But here's the thing: how many Hall of Famers did Aikman play and still only had those numbers? Oh,
I got you. I get the Aikman argument. The Aikman argument's just like if Donovan wanted to.
3 Hall of Fame position of players, and they have similar numbers.
Listen, I think Troy Aikman's one of the most. I think Troy Aikman's one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time. So, like, trust me, I'm not like, but it's silly to try to.
The reason why he chose Aikman is because Aikman is our direct rival. It's a lightning rod. He knows.
I got you.
If he called out the Buffalo Bills, there would be no response.
If Donovan wanted to make a better case for why he should be a Hall of Famer, bring up the amount of playoff wins that he has, because he's got more playoff wins. Put it this way, everybody ahead of him on the list of quarterbacks with playoff wins is in the Hall of Fame. So if he's got enough playoff wins to put himself in the conversation with all those other Hall of Famers, that should be the argument he goes with. Look at all the playoff wins I had. Forget about being 1-5 in championship games. Look at all the playoff wins I had and combine that with my statistics, and now he maybe has a Hall of Fame argument.
He has it, but the thing is, everyone wants to throw the ring thing, the ring. You know how many freaking goddamn Hall of Famers there are? Have a ring. Freaking first Hall of Famer, he never flipped the goddamn championship game.
You're right. The ring thing is a silly argument as far as like because he didn't win a ring. Like that's silly in itself.
Actually would get you in the Hall of Fame. The ring thing is for us to argue.
Yes. I'll say this. If he would have say instead of going 1-5, if he would have won 2 more NFC, like if Jim Kelly never won a ring, but Jim Kelly went to 4 Super Bowls. If Jim Kelly would have only went to 1 Super Bowl and lost the rest of those AFC title games, I don't think Jim Kelly makes the Hall of Fame either. I think part of the reason Jim Kelly's in is because he made multiple Super Bowls.
Hall of Famers on his freaking offense.
I agree.
None.
If Donovan wins 1 or 2 more NFC title games, I think he's a lock. Like I think this conversation is he's a lock. But because he didn't win 1 or 2 more NFC title games, and not just that, but like losing to a team like the Panthers, like I think losses like that hurt him that year. But he's got an argument. Listen, like I don't want to make it out like I'm a guy that sits there. Like I don't think Donovan stunk. I don't think Donovan was a bad player. I think he's got a case for the Hall of Fame. His numbers are just borderline.
I'm gonna break it to you like this. Name me a quarterback that could have kept Todd Pinks and James Trash and freaking Freddie Mitchell on a roster more than 3 seasons.
I got you. I mean, listen, Andy Reid is done. I give Andy Reid a lot of credit for that whole run with a lot of those players and stuff too, because I feel like Andy's always done a great job of getting the most out of players and their skill set. So I think Todd Pinkston's success and James Thad's success like that had a lot to do with Andy being able to scheme them in correctly. But yeah, Donovan made. I'll say this about Donovan: in 2000, when he finished second in the MVP voting, he had over 80% of our offense that year. As far as the yards, he contributed over 80% of our offensive yards and our scores, our points and all that.
He was getting injured. And here's the other thing: if Brian Westbrook gets in, it absolutely makes Donovan's case. It absolutely makes his case because a lot of Brian's numbers came from the passing game because they had to supplement not having a down the field attack that get him involved. So at the same time, people are still to say Brian Westbrook should be in. If Brian's in, then Donovan's in. And the Eagles fans who don't like Donovan for whatever reason need to back off of that because here's the thing. He changed Philadelphia football.
I agree. See, there's some people that can't separate their hatred for him. Like, Donovan rubbed me the wrong way with a lot of things, how passive-aggressive he was, how defensive he was. He rubbed me the wrong way with a lot of that. But I've been able to separate that from what he did on the field. I can acknowledge that this guy is the greatest quarterback we've ever had, and that what he did on the field was great for all those years, while also acknowledging the personality flaws. Like, I feel like I balance them well.
That he's a loser, right? Everyone. So tell me why Jaws isn't as hated as Donovan if he isn't a winner either.
Yeah, because maybe Jaws hasn't said as many knucklehead things that Donovan has. Like, I don't know.
He wasn't in that situation where he wasn't respected as a quarterback in the city. Jaws always had the respect of the fans, where Donovan had to fight from it from day one.
Yeah, so, I think early in his career, everybody really loved Donovan. I feel like where Donovan, I remember a particular time, like 2006 or 7 or so maybe, where he had said something in a post-game press conference about, I need to have some help around me and all this. And he was 100% right. He was 100% right. But the very next day in the Philadelphia Inquirer or something like that, the front page was a picture of Donovan and it said, "Put up or shut up." So, like, not that Donovan was wrong whenever he said those things, but you can't say those things and then think the media is not going to react to it. That was my thing with Donovan. You're 100% right when you say the team hasn't put adequate talent around me and all that. But to say those things publicly and then think that media wasn't going to get all over you and turn it into something, of course they were going to turn it into something. That's what the media does. They're a bunch of knuckleheads that look for any story to run.
Time for the better part of 7 seasons and have nothing but Drek at wide receiver.
I completely agree, bro. I completely agree with that. He was never wrong with any of the things he ever said publicly.
When you
never wrong
to somebody that this needs to change and it doesn't change, aren't you at some point going to act out of character and get frustrated and say things? So he took it.
Those are the things I'm talking about that rubbed me the wrong way with him. That didn't him coming out in the media. That wasn't one of those things I'm talking about. But my point is what would rub me the wrong way. If you're going to come out and say that, and then understand. I know I'm going to say this, and I know the media is probably going to rip me, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. I feel like this needs to be said. He would come out and say things like that. The media would rip him, and then I feel like he'd get really defensive about it, as if he was like, "Well, what did you expect the media to do? This is what the media does."
But at that point in time, because the media is basically saying the same thing, that he at that point in time he felt alienated by the Philadelphia media, which is.
And listen, the media was completely unfair to him throughout a lot of his time
here. The entire time.
What's that?
The entire time he was here, he had Angelo Cataldi running his mouth about this, and then you have Howard Eskin doing it. He had everyone that's in there picking at him.
And his relationship with the media, that made me laugh more than anything else. Those weren't the things that run me, because I think the media is a bunch of fucking idiots too. I think the media comes there and shows up at interviews and intentionally pushes a player's buttons just to try to get a reaction, because they know if I do this correctly and push this player's buttons the right way, he'll give me that reaction that I want. But I don't want to get like I said, we're in agreement that Donovan was a great player. You know what I mean? We're in agreement with that. there can be things about his personality that bothered me that doesn't have to bother you. And like you said, you can
personality that bothers me too.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. There's things about Andy Reid's personality that bothered me when he was here too. But Andy Reid's the most successful coach we've ever had. I love Andy to this day. He won us so many football games and brought me the greatest Eagles memories I've had up until we won the Super Bowl with Doug. So for me, I feel like I'm able to separate those things about people. I feel like some fans in this city, a guy can be a great player, but if there's something about his personality that they don't like, they just I hate that guy because of this, and they're not able to separate the two. I feel like you've got to be able to separate the two when you're looking at athletes, because not everybody's going to have a personality that you like, but that doesn't mean they're not a great player and they're not an important part of Philadelphia sports history.
Yeah, it's one of these things, hopefully, over time, that the fans of the city kind of give Donnie the respect that he really deserved the whole time he was here. It's wishful thinking. It's not going to happen, but
I honestly feel like I'm in the minority when I talk about, like, my dislike for Donovan the person. I love Donovan the player. When I talk about my dislike for his personality and some of those flaws like that, I actually feel like I'm in the minority because most of the people I talk to, I feel like the majority of this fan base love Donovan. You know what I mean? You don't agree with that?
Our athletes and love every single athlete that runs through this city? No. But at the same time, they never gave him the respect that he deserved, that he's earned. And of course it rubbed him the wrong way. And of course that he's going to kind of fire back at us and we're not going to like it. But at the end of the day, I respect everything he's done for it. But at the end of the day, there are going to be people that rub him the wrong way and did like this or that about him. And there are plenty of things I still don't like that he does to this day. But here we are.
Well, I think both of those things could be okay.
No matter what, moving forward, regardless of what he did negatively to hurt himself, he is our quarterback until somebody else surpasses him as the best quarterback in the city. It could be Clark, it could be someone after him. We don't know that. But we'll see. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. And he should have Philadelphia's support in that, regardless.
Listen, and this is a fun conversation maybe we could have on another show, because this is what's so great, I think, about this Donovan Hall of Fame argument, is I think it's so debatable that you can make a case both ways with it, depending on how you want to spin that argument. That's what is so fun about the Donovan Hall of Fame argument. He's definitely not a lock, but it's debatable. You can bring up numbers on both sides of the argument. Like, you could bring up the fact that the guy never threw for 4,000 yards in a season during the time when, like, Trent Green threw for 4,000 yards in a season. Like, Trent Green throwing for more yards than you in a season hurts. But then again, you also won more playoff games than any other quarterback during that time. So, how do these things balance out? I'll take the playoff wins over the 4,000-yard season every single fucking time. So, those things, it's a fun debate for me. I'll say this as our last, part with the whole Donovan thing to get off, but this is fine. I knew you were going to want to talk about this, and I almost put it in the show criteria just for you, Steven. But we'll have to have a show in the future where me and you can have a fun conversation about this. I'll say this about Donovan's Hall of Fame chances. If Tony Romo makes the Hall of Fame, then Donovan 100% becomes a Hall of Famer. If you look at their numbers on paper, Tony Romo hasn't won shit in this league, and Donovan's won a lot more big games and a lot more playoff games. If Tony Romo gets in just off the numbers argument alone, then Donovan gets in because his numbers are right there, and he's got all the playoff wins and all those big-time wins that go with it. So I think maybe that's his best case to get in. His best chance to get in is a quarterback like that getting in now all of a sudden really makes Donovan's chances look like so much better. It's almost like, how can that guy get in if you don't put him in now?
Yeah.
I'm with it. I wouldn't be totally against Tony Romo getting in, but he had.
And for the record, I don't think Tony Romo's a Hall of Famer. I don't want that to get misinterpreted. I don't think he is.
No, I don't think he is.
He was a great quarterback, put up a lot of good numbers, but I don't think the guy's a Hall of Famer. But there seems to be this consensus, and maybe him playing for the Cowboys help. If he gets in, and the voters put him in, now I will 180 and I'll switch from Donovan's not a Hall of Famer bandwagon to Donovan is a Hall of Famer. You will never see me say Donovan's not a Hall of Famer again after that.
I don't think the Dallas thing is necessarily true, because if that's the case, Eric Williams and freaking Nate Newton would be in the Hall of Fame right now.
Perhaps, but those 90s teams had so many Hall of Fame players to begin with, it would have been hard to put any more in than they already did.
That Dallas offensive line was legendary, correct?
Fucking greatest offensive line in history.
That line in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah.
It's one of these things where we can debate it from every which angle.
Yeah, see, that's what I said. You're fun. And I love people that want to debate with me. Like, Ralphie's scared to debate with me. He's scared to come.
I'm letting you guys go.
He's scared to tell me to shut the hell up and let him talk for a minute. Like, Steven, I feel like you're the type of guy that would be like, you're going to shut the hell up and let me talk for a minute. Tom does it all the time. I feel like you do the same thing. We're going to have to, you have to come on. I need somebody to come on the rundown with me consistently, and you just might be the guy.
Like I said, I'm waiting for it. Let's go.
All right. I love it. This has been the rundown, a2dradio.com. Wow, what a fun show. This has been a blast for me. I don't know about you guys. I've had a ton of fun today. Ralphie, I know you probably got meatballs waiting for you. His meatballs are probably cold now because we kept them waiting for too damn long. So now he's going to have to go warm them up in the microwave. Mama Delavecchio is going to be mad at all of us. Who cooked? Mama? Mama Delavecchio or Grandma?
Yep. Mother.
Mama Delavecchio. Okay, well, tell her we're sorry. We didn't mean to keep you waiting for so long. Okay, we apologize. But it was too good of a show for us to just cut it short. We just had to keep it going a little bit long. It was what it was. I'm Zach Burr. That's Ralph Delavecchio. That was Steven Reichel. This has been the rundown, a2dradio.com. Hey, we got hockey shows coming on later tonight, wrestling shows coming on later tonight. Make sure you check out all the other stuff on the A2D Radio platforms, all of our content throughout the course of the week. For Zach Burr, Ralph Delavecchio, and Steven Reichel, peace out, everybody.